Takes a second to connect. Okay. Alrighty, and we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to the first interview for the Future Proof Your Law Firm group. Super excited to be having our first guest, Josh Lowenthal, today. Thank you so much, Josh, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Luke. And frankly, I'm honored to be your first guest on the show as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I know Josh and I got connected because he's also a U of M alumni, and I know he's pretty passionate about that, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely. So huge Michigan fan. Lived in Ann Arbor for quite a long time before finally moving out.
No, that's awesome. Yeah. So where are you based out of now?
So these days I'm based out of Lafayette, Indiana.
Oh,
But my
cool.
practice, yeah, it's definitely fun. But my entire practice actually is based out of Michigan. Uh,
Gotcha. Cool. That's cool. Yeah. And if you don't mind, why don't we start with that? Give a little bit of a brief introduction on just kind of who you are a little bit and what your firm kind of specializes in right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is a good question. Always a good starting place. So I'm a Michigan-based attorney, and I provide two types of services. The first being estate planning, and we'll kind of get into this in a little bit about how I do my estate planning. And then in addition to that, the second half of my practice is all tax and tax controversy based. Tax controversy is a sub niche of taxation where it's basically tax litigation. So I represent taxpayers who are dealing with any number of issues in front of the IRS as well as state taxing authorities. So in Michigan, for example, it's the Michigan Department of Treasury. Um, but I think more than just like these two services, at the end of the day, I really view myself as a problem solver, right? So
Sure.
my job is to come in, work with my clients to really help figure out, well, what is the problem that they're dealing with, and fix it for them, solve it for them, and just being a good listener, which is kind of a really important piece of my practice.
Oh,
Um,
sure.
so that's a little bit about me. Before starting my own firm, I spent a little bit of time in some large law firms as well as the public accounting firms as well.
Awesome. No, that's awesome. And how long have you had your own firm for?
Yeah, so my firm's still relatively new. I launched back in September of 2020, so right in the heart
Cool.
of the pandemic, which kind of drove a lot of my decisions as well in terms
Yeah.
of how I started my firm.
Yeah, I think, and we'll get into that, but I guess honestly, I'd be interested to start with this. Is there a reason why you decided to go off on your own, especially when there was so much uncertainty going on in the world? Or
Yeah, so it was a little fortuitous at the end of the day. So, some of it was that I actually had this desire to start my own law firm. Immediately after graduating law school, one of the first things that I wanted to do was really build a practice around me that uh, fits into the type of life that I want to live at the end of the day. But more than that, some of it was out of necessity. So, as I mentioned immediately before starting my own firm, I was actually at a large law firm, and for better or for worse, they were actually downsizing because of the pandemic. Just as they adapted to this changing environment, a lot of
sure.
us newer attorneys, they said, we're really sorry, but you have about a month. Good luck. Um, and so it turned out to be this really wonderful crossroads where unfortunately this very tragic thing happened, but at the same time I saw a lot of opportunity to start a new business. And that's exactly what we're seeing coming out of this pandemic too. I mean, there's just tons and tons of opportunity for new young attorneys to do something unique that really caters to the new market that we're in today.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I think, I think with everything, one door's closing, but another door's opening. A lot of times you just kind of have to look for it a little bit. Something I like to say is, a lot of times if I'm giving presentations to younger people, who might not think that, oh, they could start a business at a younger age or whatever. I tell them that sometimes you can't wait for the door to open. You actually have to build the door and then open it yourself, which definitely seems like kind of what you were doing, which is awesome.
Exactly. And I think one of my favorite quotes, so I'll kind of leave you with this, is that, Winston Churchill once said, never let a good crisis go to waste. Um, and that's really the truth of it is through every crisis, there's always new opportunity to be had.
No, that's definitely for sure. And it seems definitely from your website, I was looking into it a little bit. The big thing that I wanted to address is that, it says on here that you have like a web-based law firm, and I'm assuming this is kind of how you're addressing the new market. But if you could go into a little bit of detail on what that is, why you decided to take that route, I'd be really interested in it, and I bet everyone would be too.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the initial concepts that I came up with as I was starting my firm was I had a problem. So I was moving to Lafayette, Indiana. I was licensed in the state of Michigan, and anybody who knows geography, like while they're next to each other,
Yeah.
Lafayette isn't necessarily close to Michigan. So I needed to find a solution to how I was going to really continue to practice law, something that I love doing, while also moving to Indiana with my wife. And then I started doing some research, and I realized that a virtual based law firm, a web based law firm, is really going to be the model for law firms going forward. And for a number of reasons. I think, first and foremost, we see that as a result of the pandemic, right? Offices are really no longer a necessity. They're nice and they can provide a lot of value, but at the end of the day, we as attorneys can practice law effectively, efficiently, and really provide wonderful client service, all from the comfort of our home or our guest bedroom, right? So that's really why I initially went with the web-based model, because as I started thinking about the future of law, right? What's going to separate small and solo law firms from these mega law firms that we see? It's really adaptation to new technology. And one of those technologies really is being mobile, being able to take advantage of the wonderful different practice management systems out there today that help lawyers streamline their services and become very, very lean while maintaining that level of client service that people have come to know and love from lawyers. So for me, I do a number of different things, right? But mainly I communicate with my clients and I let them know this upfront. It's why I put it on my website just to get it out of the way initially that, look, I don't have a physical office, but that's actually really a benefit for you because now I can meet you wherever you are, right? You have 10 minutes on your lunch hour? Great. We can get on FaceTime or Skype or Zoom and just talk for a minute. And or you're putting the kids to bed at night, and you can meet me at 10 p.m. Well, guess what? I can do that too because now we don't have to deal with you coming into a physical office to just meet me face to face to discuss something we can do over the internet.
Oh, definitely. No, and that's awesome. And I totally agree with you that I think that's definitely going to be something that more people are moving forward towards. And I mean, that's really a whole, reason I wanted to talk, start this group and have these interviews is to talk to people like yourself who are trying these new things because I think that there's so many new tools that are constantly being put out there, so many new strategies that, I want people to know about. And I think the thing what you were saying at the end there was being able to talk when and wherever, being able to provide that superior service. I definitely think is a major benefit of having an online firm for sure. I'm curious. Have you ever ran into anybody who was apprehensive at first about you being solely online?
Absolutely. I definitely have. Sometimes it's just people that aren't as comfortable with the technology so far. But as we kind of think about, I mean, at least for me, as I kind of think about my marketing and my strategy, I really go in with full well knowing that, look, there is going to be a group of people that just isn't my market. And there are tons of wonderful attorneys out there that I personally know that have those physical offices that are close to those clients, and that's typically who I'm going to refer those clients out to. But that being said, I still work to try and explain to them of, yes, this is a little different, but it's not that scary. And as soon as I really start explaining the benefits of it, right, I can reduce my overhead. I pass on my cost savings. You can meet me wherever you are. And couple that with the fact that the pandemic has really encouraged a lot of people to adopt these technologies. I'm mainly being Zoom. I find that once I begin to push down that big domino, people really come around pretty quickly.
Definitely. No, and that I mean that all makes a lot of sense, and I could see why. I still know a lot of people who are definitely apprehensive, at least at getting started. But once you start to kind of break down the reasons, I mean, it's kind of clear to see that there's definitely a lot of pros to trying to do something like this. And really quickly, another question I wanted to ask is, just what types of, I know you briefly mentioned it, that there's so many new technologies. What are some of your, most common like new tools that you've been using for your web-based law firm?
Yeah, so there's a couple that I personally integrate into my own practice. I think the biggest is going to be my practice management system. So right now I use Smokeball. Some other people use Clio. My case, I mean, really, it's pick your poison.
Hmm.
I happen to really like Smokeball for a number of reasons. The first and primary reason is that it's a full integrated system. So it allows me to track all of my metrics, all of my key performance indicators, so those KPIs that I think is really important for lawyers to just kind of always keep their thumb on. Um,
Definitely.
so it allows me to do that. It allows me to automatically track time for the handful of cases that I'm doing hourly as opposed to flat fee or subscription. Um, and it integrates with Outlook and my calendar, so I can do everything from a single platform. So that's the first tool that I use. In addition to that, the other big one that I'm starting to explore and really integrate is a platform called FaduLegal.com, or I think it's Fadu.com. But they are a platform that allows you to easily adopt a subscription based model for your law firm, right? So that basically you have like Netflix or your monthly gym membership, you have somebody who can pay you a monthly fee, and then they get access to FAQs, the ability to build certain legal documents that you yourself have crafted and can approve before it goes out to them. So that's another new tool that I'm playing around with right now. And then, I use some other small things for myself personally. So, for example, I'm a big fan of Todoist, which is a get things done type platform, as well as one of the new areas that I'm also branching out into, being a virtual law firm, is starting to integrate freelancers and virtual assistants into my practice as well. And so I've used Upwork for that.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah, no, that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I think it's something that there's, it's definitely there's a lot of fish in the sea when it comes to all of these different gadgets and tools you can do, and I think sometimes people don't even want to get into it at all because they're a little bit overwhelmed. But I think the biggest thing is just at least picking something, getting started, learning the ropes a little bit. And hopefully, these types of presentations might benefit some people and give them some ideas. So I appreciate you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
Um,
And I think you kind of hit it on the head too, right? I mean, look, there are more practice management systems, more new technology that's constantly emerging than like we can wrap our head around in a single day, right? In a single conversation. And I think the key takeaway that you mentioned for everybody in the group is really pick one or two of those to start and become a master at it. And then continue to integrate more and more technologies as you continue to grow and scale your own firm.
Definitely. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'd like to dig a little bit deeper on a little bit what you specialize in. As I'm, thinking about things in the future, and I'm sure plenty of people are with everything that's been going on, like, oh shoot, maybe I do need to kind of plan ahead a little bit more because the future isn't always as predictable as we expect. So when it comes to estate planning, I bet a big question that people have is when do I even get started with it? When should I speak to an estate planning attorney? Am I too young? Am I too old? Could you go into that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and look, this is Luke. This is a question that I get all the time from people, right? And,
Sure.
and most frequent that I hear from a lot of clients or a lot of prospective clients that I talk to is, hey, look, man, I'm in my 20s, like I'm dating this girl. Do I really need an estate plan right now? And my answer to them is always yes. And I really just stand by I believe it was a Zig Ziglar quote that basically says, the best time to do something was yesterday. The next best time to do that is right now.
Hmm.
And that's because at the end of the day, an estate plan is a tool that we as attorneys use and we as individuals use to really just start thinking and preparing for the future. So, and they do a couple of different things. I mean, for a lot of us young people, we typically just need a will, what we call a power of attorney and then a medical power of attorney. But the medical power of attorney is extremely important as part of your estate plan because if God forbid something happens to you, Luke, right? You're in the hospital, you cannot like you can't communicate with your doctors. The doctors have no idea what to do, how to best treat you. So a
Hmm.
medical power of attorney allows you to name somebody, whether that's your parent, your spouse, your girlfriend, your dog, um, to help make those medical decisions for you that you both have pre-discussed before. It's the same reason why I tell a lot of parents of college children that they should have their children in college should have at a minimum a will, a power of attorney, and a medical power of attorney. And for young parents, same thing. Your wills allow you to have the control over who's going to take care of your kids if God forbid something should happen to you, the both of you. And a lot of people forget about that. And for me, I just don't want to leave it up to the courts. So I'm
Sure.
incredibly passionate about estate planning. Um,
No, no, it definitely sounds like it. And I mean, I guess that kind of brings up a question: is what would you say would be one of the biggest misconceptions people have about estate planning?
yeah. So for me, the biggest misconception that I hear all the time is that I don't need to do this right now because I have no assets, or I have no money.
Sure.
And in truth, it's just not true, right? I
Yeah.
mean, estate plans are just that. They're plans. You're thinking about where your life is going to be in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Sure. No, and that totally makes sense. And I kind of anticipated that was what was going to be the answer. But no, I think that's good clarification because, I think a lot of people they run that idea through their minds is, oh, that's something I can put off till 5 years from now. That's something I can do later. But if the problem ever does arise, then it's like, oh, shoot, is it something that, I really wish I would have done sooner or something?
Exactly. Well, and look, I can't tell you how many people I run into where we're dealing with like a last minute problem because Uncle Joe is in the hospital. He's on his last legs. Very sadly, like he doesn't have a will. Can you help us prepare that quickly? It's like I absolutely can. I wish you guys would have visited me. 5 years ago. Um,
Hmm. No, that definitely makes sense. And I think, I'm really glad that you're passionate about that because that's something that hopefully, I'm really trying to, again, do in this group is talk to people that, aren't just in law school to make money because I think that's unfortunately, some people, they think, oh, lawyers make the big bucks. That's what I want to do. When really, I think there's so much power you guys have to help people. And hopefully, we can all work together to help each other grow so we can, all just help more people really.
exactly. Exactly.
Now, I want to ask, because of this web-based law firm, um, is there a reason that I guess, kind of to go back into it? I know you're passionate about estate planning, but is there a reason why you chose those particular areas to focus on with your firm, or?
Yeah, that's a great question, Luke. So for me, one of the things that I've learned as I've started my own firm, right, is that it's important to pick really to niche down as much as you possibly can. You have to become the master of um, the I think one of the terms that I hear in marketing a lot, and I'm sure you use it as well, right? Is like you have to become the master of your blue ocean, right? You have to find that blue ocean, and you
Hmm.
do that by really narrowing down quite a bit. So for me, as I started thinking about, well, what really pairs nicely with being a virtual law firm, it really split into the things I'm passionate about. I'm really passionate about estate planning. I'm really passionate about tax and tax controversy. And what can I do while not actually having to physically meet my clients? Um, so estate planning is great for that, especially in the market that I'm looking at
Yeah.
and really targeting because I can meet people virtually, and most of my clients are very open to meeting virtually. And everything we can do electronically, like I can share my documents electronically. I can, prepare everything, walk them through it, our documents in a way that you really just can't do. Um, in a face-to-face meeting. So
Sure.
that's kind of the estate planning side. And then for controversy, dealing with the IRS is almost entirely virtual at this point. And both the IRS and the United States Tax Court have been phenomenal, and one of the better agencies, in my opinion, at really adopting new technology in light of the pandemic. Um, and in part, they were just primed to do that because they have really lost a lot of money in recent years, and so they've had to streamline and become very lean. And so that practice pairs really nicely as well with just being virtual.
Gotcha. No, that totally makes sense. And I think you mentioned it earlier, and I think it's something that everybody needs to keep in mind is to be adaptable. No matter what type of business you're in, the only way that you can, really survive is to try and adapt. I know, a lot of people have a mindset of, oh, I need to persevere. I need to keep going, push through the obstacles, never give up, which obviously is very important. However, if you keep trying to do the same thing over and over and over again and it's not working, like, yes, you could keep doing that. You're persevering, I guess. But if you don't, that's going to really get you nowhere. So maybe, all you need to do is, not give up, but at least try something a little bit different, which, what you're doing seems to be a little bit different and seems to be working out good for you. And I'm really happy to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And I kind of want to wrap this up a little bit. I don't want to take too much more of your time, but obviously we've talked about a lot of good things, but of course I'd love to just get a little bit of insight. Are there any challenges you're kind of facing right now, or have faced in the past?
Yeah, so for me, I think the two or three biggest changes and challenges that I'm faced that I don't think is going to be all too surprising um, for your audience today, and for the group is number one, building trust with clients. Given that I'm not able to meet my clients face to face, there is just this little bit of hesitancy, right? Of, oh, well, who is this guy that I'm seeing across the screen? And so that just takes a little bit more care, a little bit more effort, a little bit more mindfulness in terms of dealing with my clients on a day-to-day basis to start to build that trust of, no, I am a real person, I'm a real attorney,
Gotcha.
and I'm really looking out for you. So that's part one. Part two is, I think, pretty standardized across the pandemic for anybody in any industry right now, which is finding that balance, especially working out of a home office, that it's very easy for your work to bleed over into your personal life. So just trying
Hmm.
to find that balance has been a challenge. And then the last is moving from that employee to that employer or owner mindset is hard, just because I'm learning to wear a lot of different hats these days.
Sure.
That you just they don't teach you in law school. They don't teach you in undergrad. They don't teach you, in high school, how to file taxes, right? How to file
Oh
certain.
yeah.
So that's been a challenge, but very rewarding at the same time.
Gotcha. No, that's good. Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of as hard as the struggles may be, I'm glad you're finding it worth it. And I think just even, the more, and obviously the longer your practice exists, the easier it's going to be for people to trust you because it's, getting more referrals, just seeing more reviews online, so even if it's more web-based, it's probably going to be more standardized. They're going to see more web-based. I'm curious, have you had any trouble finding clients, or how do people tend to find you since you are online?
Yeah, absolutely. So my practice in terms of finding people has kind of been split amongst a couple of different avenues. So obviously the primary right now has been referrals, right? First I talk to friends, friends talk to friends, and excuse me, so on and so forth, right? Is where I get a lot of my work so far. I That being said, I still get a handful of people who find me just based off of good positive Google reviews.
Good.
Um, and that's something that I think gets overlooked with lawyers quite a bit, and I make it a habit that whenever I go to close out a case that I finish an estate plan, one of the first things I do is I ask my clients, hey, I really hope that you've been satisfied with the work that I've done. In order for me to continue to grow, one, share my services with any of your friends and family, and number two, would it be okay if I sent you a link to leave me a Google review? And by asking that affirmatively, I find that I get a lot of positive feedback from my clients who are more than happy to just write a couple words, give me 5 stars, and go on their merry way. Um,
Yeah.
and as I kind of look to the future, I really believe that it's going to, a lot of where I'm going to drive traffic and referrals and leads is through a lot of interruption based advertising.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. Yeah. And I mean, there's a couple of things I want to address there. The first, like what you said with reviews, I think it's interesting because, people are always scared about getting bad reviews. They're very concerned about getting, if they ever got a bad review, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. But sometimes they don't seem to be as concerned about getting good reviews. And I think you need to put just as much effort into getting good reviews as you are in not getting bad reviews, because I think it really can make a difference for somebody. If they're comparing two firms, they haven't gone on their website or anything, all that they see are their Google pages, and one has a 5-star rating, the other one has a 5-star rating. But if one has 5 reviews and the other one has like 35 reviews, I think they're already a little bit more likely to look at the one with more positive reviews just because of that trust factor. And I think the more that people try and focus on that, and like you said, I mean, it's not very difficult. You can just ask them real simply. And the reviews, again, don't even have to be that crazy. Some people I see a lot of times, all they do is leave the stars or it's a couple words, but just that little bit, I think really makes a difference.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. And it kind of goes back to this idea of it, human beings are social creatures, right? Like we like social proof. So when I look to my left and right and I see that the two people have had really good experiences with this one attorney, I'm going to be more inclined to say, okay, I think I'm going to have a really good experience with this attorney.
Definitely. Yeah, no, definitely. I know you kind of said it with, your plans for the future of trying to get into advertising. And I think that's definitely something that people can, look forward towards. I'll bring up the graphic and I might share it in the group sometime. But obviously I know a lot of attorneys are big on billboards, TV, radio advertisements, the more traditional forms of media, which definitely are effective. But there's a trend going on right now that, the traditional ad spend is decreasing and digital ad spend is increasing dramatically. And the big reason is just because people can get so much of they can get more targeted and they can get a much higher ROI when it comes to, using online advertising. They can get, in front of their audiences at the right, times and right places. And, I'm glad to see that you're already in that mindset because, I think that's really the best way for people to get, the best bang for their buck, honestly.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And that's exactly why that's really where I'm going to start turning my attention in the future.
Gotcha. No, that's awesome. And I wish you the best of luck with that. That's cool.
Yeah.
I guess, the final question I want to ask before we hop off here
Yeah.
is for anybody who's struggling or, maybe is looking to future proof their firm, kind of modernize it. What advice would you give them?
Yeah, so I have a couple different pieces of advice. And that's a great question because I think one of the things that we as lawyers are very bad at is really being introspective, right, and really being critical, thinking critically about where do we want to go next. So for anybody looking to take the plunge into the virtual law firm or web-based law firm world, or starting their own law firm, period, right? My first piece of advice is really just be patient. Like these things take time and you will spend a lot of time working in your business just to make sure that you are staying afloat. But also be mindful of working on your business. So that's kind of piece of advice number one. Piece of advice number two is always be learning. I mean, read the new books that are coming out. Read blog posts from different bloggers that you're really passionate about in this area so that you can continue to work on your business and continue going to new webinars and learning about the new technologies that are coming out. They might work great for you and you might want to adopt them and you might not. But if you don't even know that they're out there, then you're not really thinking prospectively. And the last thing I'll kind of leave your audience with is just be mindful to set concrete goals and then whatever that goal is, multiply it by 10x, right? If you want to make $10,000 a month in gross revenue, great, multiply that by 10. Now you're going to make, your goal is to make $100,000 a month in gross revenue, right? Because even if you don't hit that benchmark, you're still going to well exceed your expectations.
Definitely. I forget what the saying is exactly, but it's something like, I'm going to shoot for the stars, and even if I don't make it, I might land on the moon. And
Yeah.
I think that's very right. I think that's very true. If you set your expectations a little bit lower, then yeah, you might be able to get there. But if you set it higher, you at least have some room to grow. And I think it'll even motivate you more to move there. So thank you so much for being here today, Josh. I really,
Mhm.
really appreciate it. And if people do want to learn more about you, I put your website in the description of this. But where else can they find you online?
Absolutely. So you can come find me on both my website as well as my Facebook page. It's MI Virtual Attorney, ATTY .com. So that's my Facebook business page. And then it's the same Twitter handle as well. I'm less so on Twitter, a lot more on Facebook these days. So, and feel free to also email me at josh@michiganvirtualattorney.com. I'm always happy to help anybody in your audience get on the phone, Zoom, whatever, just chat about what I'm doing, what you're doing, how we might be able to help each other. And finally, Luke, really thank you for having me on today, as well as your first guest.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to maybe in a little bit, after things have kind of been going, maybe we can have you back on and we can talk about how things have been going and everything. I'd love to do that. So thank you again, Josh. Thank you everybody for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a
All
good
right,
day.
bye.